Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right, man. I'm excited. We had
Episode
a good
three?
one.
Episode
What?
Episode 3.
Episode 3. Episode 3. Started strong with the guest game last week with Brian Keating, and now we're bringing another heavy hitter. I am so thrilled that we get to bring him in, a dear friend of mine from my days back in Eugene, Oregon. And if any of you up in the Pacific Northwest are listening, you know him because of his sultry baritone voice. You know him because he wears fun socks. And you know how much fun he is at hosting a party. The dude knows how to throw it down at work, on his off hours. You know him by the name of Joey Mac. I know him by the name of Joey McMurray. He is the voice of Oregon baseball, Oregon's men's basketball, and he's the sideline guy for Oregon football. Joey McMurray, welcome to Sports Amigos.
Thank you. Hey, well, first of all, it's good to be here. Glad to see you guys. Mike, it's been too long since we were in Arizona. Normally, I mean, I get to see Mike at least like once a year when we travel to Arizona. Not a thing anymore, unfortunately, with the way that things are. So, you know, it's good to catch up with you guys. How are things?
Dude, we're doing well. Brandon and I have both just sort of been like making this work and figuring out how life is going to be. I mean, you can see the setup I have behind me. This is my work from home situation. I have my TV.
But the credentials on the wall look good.
I know.
Especially that they're real, Mike. He went virtual background in episode 1.
Oh,
he was like, you know what? I'm stepping up my game, putting the camera around. We're going El Natural. Look at the pillow. I mean, come on.
I know.
The pillow.
Joey, I don't think so. So Joey, since you cover Oregon, you travel with the team. These were the pillows from the Media Hotel Lounge. And it started off with like 30 of these things on the different couches and chairs. And a few days in, we realized, oh, these are going like hotcakes. People are stealing them. And I thought, there's no way I am leaving Dallas, Texas without one of these pillows. So I smuggled it out of the room in my jacket.
I have one.
You do?
Nice.
From the Media Hotel. It's upstairs. It would take me a while to go get it and find it in our closet.
Maybe later. Maybe
I don't have it.
Run up.
I don't have it like out on display like Mike does. I feel like in my profession, and then you're like, you guys are a little different. Like being in the media, it's like, whatever. But like working for Oregon, if anybody ever came over to my house and was like, no, you shouldn't have that. It's like, oh dang. So yeah, I've got a few of those things. I can show you maybe one of them. Let's see. This is from I have a Sugar Bowl classic. Ooh. It's made of like basketball/football leather, and I don't even know how to describe it. It's like an old school portfolio. It's just stuff like that. It's amazing the kind of stuff that you find over the years.
So your work now is the host of Duck Insider Monday through Friday throughout really the academic year. And you went to the University of Oregon. You're from Northern California. I want to dive into that path that you took from living in Northern California. You graduate, you go to U of O, and that journey from being a student working with, I think it was the student radio station, to getting this job and evolving into a voice of these multiple sports, and you being a guy who is young enough. It's not that often, I think, in these Power 5 conferences you see people who are still relatively new in their career reaching these positions.
Yeah, I mean, so I started in high school. I interned for our local radio station, which was not in Santa Cruz, California. It was not a corporate owned radio station. It was still like a local family that owned it. And so, you know, they always like to have interns, 1 for experience, 2 for free labor. And so I took advantage of that. I happened to have a teacher when I was in high school who happened to know the program director and the morning show host at that radio station, KSCO, 1080 AM, by the way. And so, you know, to this day, that's how I got started. I will never forget this. Bill, who was the engineer for KSCO and who also did some voice work and did commercials and that kind of thing. He, on my very first day, looked at me and he said, "So you want to intern here?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And he goes, "Can I offer you a piece of advice?" And I, "Sure, 17-year-old, what are you going to say? Of course I want some advice. Please, sir. Can I have some more?" Kind of a thing, right?
Please, sir.
And Bill looks me dead in the eye and he goes, "Turn around and walk out that door right now." And I said, "What?"
Hey, as long as you can.
Well, and I just go, "Bill, what, like 17-year-old trying to be very nice. Why? Because you will get the radio bug and it will never leave your system and you will never want to do anything else."
And it didn't.
Exactly. And I think about that like 10 years later, I think about that and I go, damn it, he was right. And like, am I mad at him about it? No. But do I go, damn, am I going to say that when I'm his age to somebody in this?
I think you're going to say it sooner than that.
Exactly.
Yeah, probably sooner. Joey, so you got the bug in high school. So you go to Oregon, and I can imagine there's a lot of young dudes there that want to do play-by-play. I think every college has got, a group of young men and women that are aching at the chance to be at a Division I program and call the plays, be the play-by-play. So take us through from the time you're a freshman to the time you do get that chance and how you went about it. Because there's all kinds of ways to go about it, practicing on your own and working for the school. So yeah, what was kind of your path going from the new kid on campus to being a play-by-play?
Yeah, I mean, my path was definitely very much like I wanted to play as long as I could, but I had the realization earlier than most that I'm not just going to be able to play sports for my entire life because I hurt my arm in high school. So I couldn't really do much for a few months.
And you're a big baseball guy. Like baseball is your thing.
Yeah, I mean, baseball was the sport I was best at, like I played pretty much every sport you could think of growing up, but baseball was the sport I was best at. And so when I had that realization of like, damn, I can't just throw a baseball for my entire life, what else can I do? And so that was what led me down that track. And Oregon was very appealing to me because, they always say that you're going to have this moment of like clarity when you visit the campus that you want to go to. I don't know if everybody has that, but like I certainly did. Like I was very much like, yeah, I want to go here. I looked at every journalism school there is. And so I say all that to answer your question, Brandon, because, I think that I definitely identified with the community of Oregon. One, because the student radio station wasn't like the most established thing in the world. Like compared to other schools that have great journalism schools, KWVA wasn't this like sports powerhouse. Like it wasn't right. Syracuse. It wasn't Stanford. Like it wasn't Mizzou with Florida, with like Northwestern, with these student radio stations and like student TV stations that are kind of apart from the journalism school that are very, very, established. And that kind of appealed to me because I was like, I think Oregon has a real opportunity here. And I kind of recognized that. And so that was part of why I picked Oregon is I just loved the community of KWVA. And I loved the way that the journalism school at Oregon operated. And then plus it helped that obviously I was going to school in 2011 was my freshman year. Like Oregon was really good at a lot of different sports and baseball was brand new on campus. Like George Horton had just restarted the program. That was a huge appeal to me, like to just be around that and be a part of that. And I kind of looked at those opportunities and I was like, yeah, that's something that I could really be a part of. So freshman year, like the very first sport that I called play-by-play for at Oregon was volleyball.
That's not a bad gig.
No, but especially coming from Santa Cruz too, like beach volleyball is a big deal,
right?
In Santa Cruz, California.
And on the college level over the last decade or so, it's really become bigger.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, like Oregon has a beach volleyball team now. They didn't when I was a student, like, so that was how I approached it was like, okay, where's the best opportunity to like, where can you jump on the best opportunity? And that was what I did. And so, volleyball, everybody walks into the student radio station. I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people walk into the student radio station. They're like, well, I want to be involved in football and basketball. Well, I was
Everybody
the one
does.
yeah, I mean, I was the one that was like, I'll call volleyball, like I'll call soccer, like I'll call softball, I'll call
Badminton.
lacrosse. I mean, yeah,
Anything.
like absolutely. Like, because I always figured, and I say this to everybody now, like, if you can call volleyball on the radio, you can call any sport that's fast.
Oh my gosh, you must never stop talking. That's so
Yeah.
true.
And like, you have to be able to say bump set spike without actually saying bump set spike, because nobody in volleyball actually says bump set spike.
PSS.
Like, yeah, like those are not things that people say. So
Right.
it was that sort of stuff that I really gravitated towards, and getting to know the coaches and the student athletes, like that was really what got me going. And to be honest, it's still what keeps me going. Like, those are the best. That's the most fun. That's the best part of all this.
So
Very cool.
do you find that these young kids who are coming through the Oregon journalism program, because I know with the media scrubs and talking with everybody during football, basketball, there's that natural interaction. But do you find when you talk with people, like, do they pick your brain and ask you about that kind of stuff? And do you see like light bulbs go on when you tell them start with the sports where you can get that kind of exposure and those reps?
Yes and no. I mean, I think the ones that ask the question already know the answer. Like, the repetition is really important, and so I think yes and no. I mean, I've talked to a lot of different guys. I take a lot of pride in what the student radio station in Oregon, KWVA, has become, because it's just become such a behemoth in the collegiate landscape. So yeah, I mean, I think the ones that are asking those questions are the ones that kind of already know the answer, and they just need a confirmation and sort of like a push in the right direction. So, because then, at the same time, I have talked to some young people that are like, well, all I really want to do is, be an analyst for baseball, or be an analyst for whatever. And, I often tell them, like, yeah, that's good, but how are you going to get there? And because I mean, like, obviously, like, I wanted to call basketball, like I wanted to call football, like I wanted to do all those things when I was first getting out of school, but that's just not the way that it works. You gotta show that you can do it, because what nobody wants to talk about with this industry, but I think you guys would agree is a real reality, is that there's a lot of money involved. I mean, like, the student athlete experience alone costs a lot of money. Like, the scholarships, the facilities, and even, don't even talk about a school at Oregon's level. Talk about a school at the D3 level. The scholarship that student athlete earns to be able to go and compete on behalf of the school, and then also gets an education out of it. That's a huge cost.
And schools like that are the D3 level are sort of like their scholarships are formed and regulated in a different way. Like, when we covered McMurry University and Hardin Simmons University in Abilene, Texas, the big thing that their sports information director would say is, don't call it national letter of intent. They aren't signing in the way that you see at Division I and Division II. They are signing, an agreement, a contract of sorts, but their scholarships are coming from the educational side. So I think you're spot on. You have to see this through a different lens of what it costs to make this happen. And I don't think people really get that.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I hope changes as we move forward with some of the name, image, and likeness, and really just being able to tell those sorts of stories. I mean, I think that's a huge part of college athletics that makes it special. And I think that because the money has gotten so big, in terms of the money that people talk about in the media the most is, TV contracts and, all those sorts of things, and big sponsorships and advertising. But, there's a lot of money that's in the education and the community and the tradition. And I think a lot of that should be on the forefront. And look, and I know I'm saying that as somebody that works in the college landscape, but I'm also saying that as somebody that went to school at the school that I work at. Like, if I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be doing this for a living. And I think that's something that I hope that everybody can kind of get behind, because I think the majority of student athletes would say, like, yeah, I want to do what's best for myself. But it's also, less than 1% of the student athletes that are going to end up going professionally in their sport. And so the products, if you will, that I talk to that went pro in something other than their athletic sport, I mean, those people are all massively successful in a lot of different walks of life, whether it be business, family, whatever. And they attribute a lot of it to being a student athlete and the challenges, the adversity, the camaraderie, you know, all those things that sound cliche, but it's a big part of this. And that's what I've really fallen in love with. And to be honest, I don't even think I had a good grasp of that when I started doing this.
Joey, I want to move over to, you know, sort of your day-to-day work life now. I know that Duck Insider is a big part of what you do. And I know a lot of people love the game day experience. So I'll start with that game day and the lead up to game day. Speaking, since we're in football season, I'll speak to football season. What is it like for you to prepare for an Oregon game? And then what is that daily schedule like for you on game day?
It's a lot. I mean, a college football Saturday for us pretty much starts at about 8 hours before kickoff. You know, it depends honestly if it's a home or a road game. So we'll start if it's a home game, it's going to be, you know, I'm fortunate enough to do our local affiliate here in Eugene 95.3. I help do their pregame show as well. And so, you know, it's just a little bit more because of that compared to if I was just doing just our network broadcast stuff. But yeah, it's, you know, it's a lot. So it starts with, first of all, making sure that you know everything that you need to know before you walk into the stadium with notes and who the players are and what you're going to talk about. I mean,
because how much time do you spend on your charts and your notes going into game day?
Yeah, it's got to be like a nonstop thing.
It is a nonstop thing. I mean, for football, it's less work for me than it is for Jerry and Jorgie because I'm on the sideline. Jerry Allen in his 34th year calling football. Mike Jorgensen's in his 31st year being the analyst for football. You know, it's a little easier for me to be on the sideline because really my job is to observe what's happening on the field, but then also, you know, identify some storylines that I can talk about. Like that's the biggest part of what I'm doing. Whereas Jerry and Jorgie are actually calling the game. You know, they're doing what I do for basketball and baseball. So, you know, it's more work leading up for them. For me, it's more just keeping track of what can happen, what will happen, what might happen, and then it's, you know, oh shoot, what's happening during the game. You know, that's really what I'm all about. So. But I do a lot of the engineering for us. And so, you know, that means making sure that our feeds are working from the field mics, from the ref mic, making sure that any other, you know, of the audio nerd sorts of things, making sure all that stuff goes according to plan. You know, that's really what I'm worrying about. You know, a college football Saturday usually ends up being about a 12-hour day by the time it's all said and done, you know, and that's just the time that I'm physically doing things. Forget the watching other games and keeping track of what's happening and the stuff that you do at home, you know. That's the thing. I mean, I think you guys would agree. Like in this profession, it ain't work-life balance, it's work-life blend. And you better be okay putting all of it in a blender and drinking that smoothie.
I thought of something interesting. You mentioned the play-by-play for football. 34 years, you said he's been doing it?
Yeah.
In episode 2, our buddy Brian said to get the jobs that everybody wants, people literally have to die for them to open. You know, so this guy's been doing it for 34 years. So I'm thinking about young broadcasters that are thinking, man, one day I could be the voice of the Ducks, voice of whatever team they grow up, college, pro. What do you think is a good alternative for people to shoot for, like a realistic alternative and this is play-by-play and sideline specific, because I feel like that world is a tough one to crack into. And so, yeah, I mean, like you're lucky enough to be a part of a broadcast team, both as a play-by-play and sideline of a Division I major college. What do you think is a good alternative for people to shoot for as a starting point and also to aim for in the play-by-play and sideline world in particular?
I think it's a good question. I mean, my ultimate question in return would be what's the end goal? Is the end goal, do you want to do network television and be a play-by-play guy for network TV or network radio where you're not working for a team? or is the end goal to do, kind of what I'm doing, like you're working for one team? I think that's an important distinction, because a lot of people who end up in jobs like I have, they don't tend to jump to like TV network or like network radio, you know. And to be honest, the network radio jobs and the network TV jobs, those are fewer and far between than what I'm doing. Because there's a lot of different schools out there that have a person that's in my position. So I think that's the first thing to consider. Like, are you in it because you want to work for one team and you want to tell one team's story, or are you in it because you want to be the person that's on ESPN, CBS, ABC, NBC, anything in between, like Fox? Are you in it to be the network guy that's doing a bunch of different sports and a bunch of different teams? I think that's the first question you have to answer. So what I would say is, if you want to work for a school, do whatever you can to call, even if it's small college, if it's high school, like, do those reps, tell that team's story, be able to show that you can tell a story over the course of a season. Because
you have to be, would you say you have to be willing to work for free for a while too? Like the paying gigs will be harder to get unless you've got years under your belt.
See, I struggle with that. I really do. I hear that. I think that it's important to quote unquote pay your dues. I think that it's important to be an intern and to learn. But I don't know that I would encourage people when they're out of college to work for free. I think that this is a profession where you need to have experience, not just a degree. And in fact, in a lot of times, I don't even know if you even need the degree. If you can show that you can do it, this is an experience-driven field. I would never discourage anybody, though, to be honest, from going and getting that degree, because I think you're going to learn some other skills through that you won't just from calling games.
But experience is the key, you feel like?
I think it is. I mean, no one's ever asked me what my GPA was. No one's ever asked me when I graduated in college.
And I'm glad they didn't ask me. Yeah. Mine.
Yeah. I mean, and look, like, yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of people that are in that boat. Like, if you're good at it, you're good at it. I mean, I don't know. To be honest, I hearken it back to this a lot. Like, if you're an electrician, you're going to be an apprentice for an electrician, and you're probably going to be really successful being an apprentice for an electrician because you learn from somebody who's been in the trade for a long time. And for whatever reason, our society has really, I don't know even the right way to describe it. Like, I think you guys know what I'm getting at. Like, it's like, well, if you're going to be an electrician and go to a trade school, like it's almost like you're discouraged from doing that with the way we are with 4-year degrees and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't like that. Like, I think that if you're good at it, take the plunge. Like, honestly, our men's basketball coach, Dane Altman, says this all the time. He's like, nobody should ever fault a student athlete for leaving school early and going to the draft if they think that they have an opportunity to go make money and to be successful, because in no other profession do we ever fault somebody for taking the plunge and diving right in. Right. Like, I think about that a lot. Like, that's Dane Altman, who has put a lot of dudes in the NBA.
And there's not a lot of fields out there where you can leave school early. It's one of the few, one of the very, very few where so many people that we see in the spotlight and the limelight, and even the ones that you're talking about guys in mid-majors that are leaving early because they feel like they've got the agent already. They've got a good enough highlight reel and resume. That's an interesting point. Yeah. Experience and opportunity are things.
And to be honest, like, Mike's heard me say this before. I don't think that you're in the right place at the right time. I think you make your own luck. I think you get lucky by being the first person on someone's list. That's exactly what happened to me. Like, I was going into my junior year at Oregon, and Jerry Allen needed help hosting the Daily Show that now I host, Duck Insider.
Now, okay, so and by that time, from freshman year to that time, what were you doing in those 2 years to get yourself in that position? Because that's the key. That's the key thing. All the things you did leading up to that.
No doubt. I mean, that's the making your own luck. I tell people that all the time. I was calling volleyball, calling softball, calling soccer, hosting shows on the student radio station.
Getting reps nonstop.
Yeah, going to media availabilities, doing interviews alongside the professionals when I was in college, seriously watching Jerry Allen and the way that he went about his business. I mean, you don't do the job for 30 years and not be really freaking good at it. I mean, and so that's what I did. And so, I joke with Jerry now all the time, who I would consider to be my biggest mentor. I joke with Jerry all the time, like, I know the only reason you guys hired me is because I was convenient, cheap, and I could do the job. And it's true. I mean,
It's partly true, at least partly true.
But
Joey.
But the other side of that, right, is I was the first person that Jerry thought of when there was an opportunity
because of all the work you did.
Right. And so you make your own luck. Like I was a junior in college and they said, we want you to help us do this while you're still in school. And by the way, when are you graduating? And I was like, when do you want me to graduate? Like that's what I did. And so I left school a year early. I graduated a year early and I've never left. Like I have the job that I have now. And the job I have now started that was, hey, when will you graduate? We'd like to give you an opportunity. Like I'm very fortunate to have been in that position. Like the timing worked great. Don't get me wrong. But I also think, and I tell this to everybody, like you better be at the top. Everybody who's in a position like mine and director of broadcasting, like we have a list in the top of our drawer, right? Like it is the first thing that we think about when we have an opportunity. Everybody has that, whether it be a coach, an administrator, a sports director, a news director, whoever. You have a list of people that you're like, these are the people that I would call if I have an opportunity. I happen to be at the top of Jerry's list, probably just because I was cheap. But
no, you also did a whole lot of work to get there, though.
Maybe. I mean, there were people that were way more qualified than me that probably deserved it more than I did. But I was the one that was the easiest to hire at the time, and they thought that I could do the job. I met the quality and the pay rate, right? And that's what you're after. So I think, to be honest, like 100% honest, I think that is what separates you, is like you have to do all of those things to be in that position. But I will say, though, it's also really important that then you don't screw it up. Like I actually ask anybody who's ever worked with me. I famously say the same phrase before we go on the air for every broadcast. I don't care if we're doing a 2-minute quack minute, which I realize now is dumb because all of our minute-long quack minutes end up being 2 to 3 minutes. It's happened for the last 3 years. We just can't help it. Radio guys, we talk too much. Well, I always say have fun and don't screw it up. Before every broadcast, I say
good
that.
Advice.
And that's how, I mean, I feel like that's what you have to remember too, is like, okay, you've done the job to be in this position. Now don't get yourself out of that position by doing something stupid. There's a lot to be said for that too.
I like it.
Joey, I want to ask you, now that you've had an incredible experience, career-wise, since you graduated, taking the job, sort of being handed the torch of Duck Insider to where you are now. Is there anything or any couple of things that Joey today in 2020 would tell Joey way back when you took that torch from Jerry and really started to take the reins of baseball and Duck Insider?
No doubt. I mean, I it's funny that you asked that question because I do the player interviews on our football coaches show every week. And I always ask them, what advice would you give to 17-year-old you? And the number one thing that we hear is patience. Like, don't expect everything. Like, have patience, work hard. You're going to be fine. The funny thing is, like, I would tell myself the same thing. Like, I would say almost verbatim exactly what a lot of those guys have said in that circumstance. And the reason I say that is I felt like when I got out of school, like I had no feel for how much money you would make doing this for a living. And it's not a lot. Like we all know that, but they always
watching right now, like, how much does he make?
Well, right. But they always say, right, like, do something you love. You never work a day in your life. Like, I'm a huge believer in that. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm a huge believer in that. Like, there are days where I want to quit my job and just walk away and work a 9 to 5. Like, that happens. But after you do that 9 to 5 for a while, you might be like, damn, what did I give up? And that's always in the back of my mind. Like, it's a dream job for a reason. Like, people call what I do a dream job for a very good reason. So the advice that I would give to younger me would be like, it's okay to be uncomfortable. Like, that is an okay thing. Like, you do not have to have it figured out when you're 21 years old, because as a planner, I wanted everything figured out right away. Like, I have always thought that way. Like, I've always been, look down the road. You better know when the next exit is 3 exits past on the freeway, right? Like, that's how I operate. And it's just not that way in this industry. Like, there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, shoot, and we're talking in the midst of a global pandemic. I mean, like, normally I see Mike at least once or twice a year because I'm traveling to Arizona. I haven't seen Mike in almost a calendar year now. Like, it's, that is the ultimate example of like, it's okay. And I know we're all feeling that right now, just the anxiety of the unknown. So I really feel like that's what I would tell younger me, is just like, hey, it's all right. You can be uncomfortable. It's going to work out. It's going to be fine. Just don't be an idiot. Get off your soapbox sometimes, and things are going to be okay.
Joey, I got to tell you, growing up, play-by-play announcing to me, and I still feel this way, honestly, to this day, I feel like play-by-play announcing is the coolest job in the whole world. And I'm really not just saying that because you're here. I grew up idolizing Chick Hearn, Vin Scully, grew up in Los Angeles. I was spoiled with...
Are you a Dodgers fan?
The greatest. Yeah, Dodgers fan for sure.
Well, you're a Giants fan, Joey. Come on.
Hey, let me enjoy my World Series, okay? This is my first since I was 2 years old.
It doesn't count this year.
You guys, oh boy. Anyway, getting to the point. I respect the rivalry though. Yeah, honestly, I think it's the coolest job in the world. But you were alluding to some things right now, and there are a lot of challenges to being a play-by-play. No matter what level you're at, even if you get to the highest level, there's probably even more challenges. For you, as someone who is now married for a couple years, personally, what are the biggest challenges in being a play-by-play, not being home a lot during the school year, especially when you're traveling? For you, what do you feel like are the biggest challenges that people have to keep in mind if they're going to pursue play-by-play and sideline?
The hours. I mean, 100%. We are working when everyone else is being entertained, because you watch football on Thanksgiving. Well, who's working on Thanksgiving, right? I mean, and for example, like, we've got a basketball game the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, the day that everybody leaves work before noon anyway, right? Like, that isn't happening, right? And then we play a football game on Black Friday. Not that this year I was going to go shopping, but normally in a year I would be doing some Black Friday shopping. It kicks off the holiday season, and then we're supposed to have a game on that Saturday, but we don't even have an opponent for it. We have a TV slot. Don't know who the Ducks are going to play that day yet. Like, that's a full weekend. Like, Thanksgiving isn't a vacation. And I think that's what people need to be aware of is, we are working when everyone else is being entertained because we are the entertainers. Play-by-play guys, I think play-by-play guys are such a fascinating crossover between a journalist and an entertainer. Like, it is a very unique niche to be in. In fact, some of the best play-by-play guys that I've listened to and that I really like actually have training in theater. Like, they're more of professionals on the stage than they are anything else. And
I think improvising is a good skill to take away from the dramatic arts, for sure.
No doubt. I mean, I like, you guys can both speak to this better than I can, but I've heard so many news directors say that they'd rather have a sports guy who can do play-by-play sit there at a breaking news desk rather than a news anchor who reads scripts. I mean,
and just go for it.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. Like, we are trained to not have a script. Now, sometimes that backfires terribly. I've done it. But other times it's like, wow, that didn't suck. I think that's something that I often think about is, boy, what a crazy job it is. And it's so interesting too, the way that everybody can criticize the play-by-play guy. I do it. Everybody does it. I do it to myself.
Guilty.
I mean, yeah, but then you go try to do it. Right. Like, I got criticized for my Peyton Pritchard call where Peyton hit a game winner at Washington. And I got criticized because it was like, how is it that the CBS TV guy called it better than you did? Well, you know why I didn't call it as good? Because I was so shocked and surprised that he made it that I just became a fan. Like, that's the beauty of not being the network guy and being the duck guy. Like, I just got to be a fan for a second. I mean, my call was literally like, it was literally internally, I was going, holy crap, he made it. Like, and that's what I said on the air, almost verbatim. And you know, and a lot of fans, I think, didn't like that. They were like, well, that didn't sound great. And I was like, heaves up a shot and he makes it. Like, how'd he do that? You know? And so I think that there's definitely a lot of, it's a lot harder than it might appear. But in the industry, if I could just say, like, the industry, Brandon, to answer your question originally, like, is not as glamorous as people think. And so it's very much like the hours suck. And this is the first season that I haven't traveled, which is really weird.
And the hours are still tough.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm probably going to be broadcasting basketball games from our studio, which is going to be more work than if I was on the road staying in a hotel, just sitting there in person. I mean, there's a lot to consider with that.
You brought up a really good point that I kind of want to touch on. And you said that in that call against Washington, you couldn't help but sort of be a fan in the moment. And as much as journalists, because you know what I mean when I say journalists are supposed to conduct themselves in a certain way.
You can't be a homer. Can't be Homer Simpson.
Right. But
Right.
You being in a position where you're calling games and you're being a journalist in your own right, being a journalist for the team, how do you balance that being excited about what's going on with quote unquote my team and still doing the job?
Well,
I imagine that's tough early on too, when you're first starting to call games for like a team you grew up watching.
It is. And so, I mean, okay, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I would say, what's the definition of a journalist? Because I do not consider myself a journalist because I think it's an insult to journalists. Because true journalists aren't doing what I'm doing. They're doing actual important things. I'm sitting there being an entertainer. I mean, I'm closer to public relations than I am to journalism because I get my checks get signed by the University of Oregon, which happens to be the team that I'm, calling games for. So it is very difficult. Best example I can give you for that. How many people say we when they're talking about the team that they grew up rooting for?
It seriously feels like it's about 60 to 75%, somewhere in there, say I, me, like I, us, I, we versus the team.
Yeah. And so what I've always said, and people always kind of smirk when I say this, and what I've always said is like, well, are you on the team? Did you earn a spot in that roster? Like, what do you do for them? How do you help them win? You drink a lot of beer.
What are you doing with your life?
Yeah, you drink a lot of beer and you eat wings and you root for them and then you get mad when they lose. Like, if I started saying we in relation to you, you'd be like, well, who are you? Why are you saying we?
Thank you.
Like,
I feel attacked in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but look, I was guilty of it. Like when the Giants were winning the World Series in 2010, had to bring that up.
I hate you,
but I
love you.
But like when I was a senior in high school and that was happening, and I'm going, oh God, the Giants are great. Like we need to celebrate, and it's like, dude, I think back on that now, it's like, what are you doing? But that's part of it, right? Like that's the change that happens when you're not a fan anymore and you have a job to do. The difference is that with what I do, like I get paid to brag about the Ducks, right? Like that is the job. So it's a very interesting balance between those two things. And another example I can give of that. So I was doing a series that wasn't on TV. And so on the Oregon Sports Network, our broadcast on the radio, we also carry it on our TV quality video stream from the athletic department. Well, for a lot of baseball series, like it's not the same as like basketball, football, like baseball, softball, a lot of these other sports. The only video stream you have if you're an opposing fan is the home broadcast, right? Like, so in that circumstance, Arizona State baseball, Oregon baseball, this was in I want to say this was in 2015 or 2016. And it's like those two teams were very good that year. Arizona State's got a really dedicated fan base. That was like just when Oregon was really, really good in baseball, started to come down a little bit after that.
That was Cole Irvin. Wasn't Cole Irvin on the team? Was he their Friday night guy?
That was the year he got hurt. It was the year I'm referring to. But yeah, so Cole now pitches for the Phillies. Like there was a lot of good players on that team. Jake Reed was on that team. Jimmy Sherfy was on that team. You know, Matt Crook even was on that team, who's now in the minors for the Giants. I mean, and a few other teams. He got drafted by the Giants and now moved on. But like the point is that Arizona State has a very passionate baseball following. All the Arizona State fans were listening to our broadcast. And so I had that in my mind, like, okay, I'm the Duck broadcaster, but I'm doing a game knowing that Arizona State fans have nowhere else to go. Like they're going to be watching and listening to our stream. Yep. I don't know that it necessarily like completely changed the way that I did the series, but I definitely was complimentary of the other team. Right. Like that's just kind of how you do it. Like, I mean, if dude makes a dive and
down
catch,
the middle.
Yeah, I mean, but if the dude makes a dive and catch in right field, like you're going to get excited and be like, damn, that was a hell of a catch. Right. Whereas if you were really the homer broadcaster, if you will, like quote unquote, you'd be like, oh, diving catch in right field.
Right.
Right. Like, you know, it's the major league example when Bob Uecker's character gets drunk and then Monty takes over and he goes, fly ball, caught. And it's a diving play in right field, right? Like that's the extreme that I'm getting at. Well, I got a ton of great comments from Arizona State fans. Like our social media director for baseball was like, hey, like you should see these. Like they're saying like, damn, this is great. Like, so on one hand, like that's awesome, right? Like people enjoyed listening. But then on the other hand, were Duck fans kind of pissed? Like were Duck fans like, oh, we want to listen to like, you know, you talk about and like brag about the Ducks. Like it's such a fine balance. And that's where coming back to like, do you want to do the network neutral broadcast or do you want to work for a team? Like it's a very delicate balance. So it's really hard when you're first starting to figure out where that is. And I will say when I first started, I was so aware of like not being a homer that I probably wasn't a homer enough for Duck fans. Like a lot of Duck fans probably listened to me and they were like, Jerry Allen, Terry Johns, like those guys are way more Duck fans than we know it. Like, who the hell is this kid? Like, but that's just kind of feeling it out, you know? And I've heard from fans who have been like, you don't really sound that excited when we win, you know? And I've adapted to that. You know, I've been doing this. God,
there's a fine line. Yeah. Yeah. And it's lose to an extent in your situation.
It is. It is and it isn't.
Because most of your audience probably wants you to get more excited about it, but then you want to be professional about it at the same time.
Right. I mean, that's the definition of the line is you got to be professional, but you also have to still cater to your audience. Right. I mean, you know, and I think more and more it's accepted that the broadcasters are fans maybe than it ever was before. Because of social media and affiliations and, you know, our calls are out there way more than they probably ever were. Like when you were only heard on the Oregon Sports Network affiliate stations, that was one thing. Well, now our calls show up on SportsCenter and they want it to be the hometown guy. And now everybody knows like the hometown guy is going to be way more excited than Joe Schmo calling it on TV. I mean, it's, you know, it is different, but I will say like, it's a really fine line. It is a very, very delicate balance that I don't know. Like, to be honest, guys, I don't know if there's a perfect balance there. It depends on the day.
So, Joey, I want to pivot over to your friendship with Mike. This whole concept of our show here.
What friendship? He's terrible. I don't like
him. the whole idea that we're going for is, you know, we're bringing people on that we really respect. We're bringing people on in some cases that we're really good friends with. Take me to the moment you met Mike. Apparently, it was on the basketball court. I know you're a baseball guy, but you guys actually met playing a basketball game. I'd love to reminisce about that. You know, meeting him and how you guys came to become friends. Because we make all kinds of friends in this crazy world that's the sports media, and it happens in all kinds of different ways. So yeah, how did you and Mike meet, and how did it develop into like a respect and a friendship?
Well, I don't know if Mike ever respected me, but I guess we'll find out.
Oh, hell yes. Are you kidding me? Dude, I got all the love in the world for you, buddy. You're my boy.
Thanks, man.
You're my brother.
Love and respect, though. I mean, I guess we'll find out over the course of this conversation. But in all seriousness, I was an intern at KZI the summer between my sophomore and junior year of college. And that was right before Mike got the job at KZI. So I knew Jake Zivin, who's now the voice of the Timbers, Eric Elkin, who's gone on and done amazing things in local news, and Steven Nelson, who's working for MLB Network and just absolutely killing it. That was the trifecta at KZI. I mean, it was like an all-star group of KZI reporters.
Talented dudes, I've heard, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Did it feel to you like I have to be good?
Yes.
I have to be great at what I do. I have to be dialed in at what I do. That's what I felt when I walked through the door. I didn't meet Eric until the national title game that year, but meeting Steven, meeting Zach or Jake, like that's what I felt.
Yeah, I felt that way too. Like I remember when because I had known them from like media availabilities and like, when you're all in a normal situation, not COVID life, when you're all in a scrum and you're trying to figure out how to hold your microphone so you're not in anyone's way, but you're still getting good audio and you're still getting a good shot. I had met all those guys. And so, I just thought it was the next step in my progression to like learn the local TV sports scene more than just like observing them do their job. And so, yeah, when you walked into that room, it was like they knew what they were doing. I mean, and honestly, like I learned a lot of the technical skills from them, but some of the stuff that I learned from them, and this is why I think all three of those guys are so successful, had nothing to do with being like a sports reporter. Like it had everything to do with just like being a good person. And I learned a lot of that from them. Like just how do you go about interactions with people in this industry? And I've learned a lot of this from Jerry over the years too, but that was really how I saw it from like, this is how you talk to athletes. This is how you prepare for these interviews. This is how you do these things. And I'll never forget that. Like I had one, I'll say this, like, I'm sure Steven's going to hate me saying this, but like I had one great conversation with Steven Nelson one night because I was only supposed to work. I don't even remember what days it was. I was supposed to work 5 days a week. Like that was what the internship was, right? Not 7. Well, I came in because Steven was solo one night. Like Eric and Jake were both off. And so I came in and I said, well, I want to be here. And Steven was like, well, okay. Like I can't tell you to go home. Like that's cool. And Steven and I just had great conversations about life. Like at the time, he and I both were in long distance relationships. And here I am going into a junior year of college. And here Steven is like, I think a very, very successful right out of college reporter and guy who I really respected. And I just, on a personal level, it was like, man, like this is real. And, I married that girl. She's sitting in the other room that we were talking about. So
nice.
Yeah, it's like that kind of stuff. I think Mike, like it wasn't just professionally, it was personally, like there was a very high standard in that room. And I still think about that. Like I still remember that. Like, I hope that those 3 guys would be proud. And so, but how I met Mike was there was a pickup basketball game. We radio guy, we go off on tangents. Got to fill some airtime,
That's all good.
So yeah, I mean, there was a basketball game that a lot of the KZI guys and like some other local, register guard reporters would play in at one particular outdoor court that wasn't the greatest outdoor court in the world, but we did it.
It was terrible.
Yeah. And I remember because I was the guy that was like, oh, well, you just got to guard the post. Because I admit, like I was the grinder in basketball. I rebounded, I played defense, and I didn't do anything else. I let the shooters take care of it.
My kind of teammate. I like it.
Yeah, I'm all about the scrappy, do what you need to do to win the game.
Draymond Green.
I guess less technicals, but yes. So and it was like, all right, go guard the tall guy. I mean, that's what everybody told me, go guard the tall guy. Like, don't let him push you around. And it was like,
so Mike was the tall guy that time.
Well, yeah, it's like, damn, dude, he's like 6'5", and then he jumps, and it's like, I can't jump that high. So yeah, that was when we first met. and it was real. I mean, now I will say though, the real beauty of it is that he and his lovely wife Carrie lived like 4 blocks away from us.
Oh, cool.
So most convenient thing ever. The house that I'm talking to you guys in now, we bought, oh God, 2-3 years ago now. Is it 2 years? Yeah, 2.5 years ago now. And my wife and I lived in the same apartment for
year and a half, I think.
Yeah, I mean, at least I was there longer than she was. I mean, it was a long time. And so yeah, we were fortunate that they happened to live within walking distance, which that might have been nice after a few adult beverages some nights.
Proximity is nice.
I will say this, like I still remember like one of the first jokes that I remember Joey cracking was on that basketball court. And I think it was like right after I tossed up a sky hook that went in. And you made some comment about how the heck am I supposed to guard this?
That's what I said when he would do that.
Dude, like right after that, it was just like, we're joking, we're having fun. And then it turns out we live so close to each other. And then you get to meet like our dog, and then it turns into our 2 dogs. And
Moose and Mia, the real MVPs of the Scow household.
They are still as stubborn as ever. Nice. And then our wives met each other. And from at that point, it turned into like, a couple double dates, and then like, oh, come on over, watch a movie, and come hang out with us.
Man, you remember when we could go on double dates? What was that life like?
Remember when you can go on a date, Mike?
Exactly.
I remember
like a date, like just you and Harry.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was the last date that we went on was actually last year. I don't know why, but my parents were crazy enough to watch Peyton. This was when we were pregnant with our second little girl, Kylie. They watched Peyton, and we went to Hawaii for a week, and it was awesome.
Well, that's a hell of a date.
It was a week.
Talk about maximizing your opportunity.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. I do feel like I'm an indentured servant to my parents now for a little while as a result of that. But my parents love our kids. That's
one way to approach it. Like you could ask them every other week to watch them on date night, or you can go a whole year without asking them and then have them watch them for a whole week.
Yeah,
it's like smart. Paid time off. It just the time slowly builds up over the course.
Parents' time off.
I love it. Brandon, do you think it's time?
I think it's time, Mike, for the lightning round.
The lightning round!
The lightning round! Joey McMurray, we have now reached that time in the show before we prepare to say our goodbyes that we go through, ask you a bunch of questions, don't give you a lot of time to answer them. 10 questions, about as fast as you can answer. And
okay, hang on.
Like radio fast.
Need a beer first.
Like beach volleyball freshman year fast.
Bump set spike. Just don't say actual bump set spike.
You ready for this?
Sure.
All right, let's get this party started.
I have no idea what he's going to ask either, too. So we're kind of experiencing.
So this isn't tag team. This is like just
no. I like chime in, but I have no idea what he's going to ask you.
Okay. Am I allowed to ask follow-ups for clarification, or is that outside of lightning round?
We're not that
etiquette.
No, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. This is all about having fun and just goofing off. The Pacific Northwest is known as one of the greatest beer regions, I would probably say, of the Northern Hemisphere. What is the best beer in Oregon?
In Oregon or the Pacific Northwest? Those are different things.
I'm going to stick with Oregon.
Oregon. Citrus Mistress from Hop Valley.
How many beers have you tried? Do you know, Joey, have you kept track?
Yeah, I do.
A buddy of mine actually has an app. Do you have that app?
Yeah, I have Untapped. Let me get it open for you right here.
Yeah, you're the real deal.
So far on Untapped, I'm at 1,679 unique beers.
All right, I think my buddy's at 1,400, so I'm gonna have to tell him he's got to catch up to you.
You go.
He's in Portland.
Portland's a great place. What can I say?
Okay.
Shout out to Warren.
Your best and or favorite Oregon sports memory And if it's memories, we'll give you 2.
On a call? Are we going on a call, Mike?
No, just experience something you were there for.
That's tougher.
But part of covering the event.
Oh, okay, on a call. On a call. Okay.
The Rose Bowl against Florida State immediately comes to mind because I famously, if you watch the video of Tony Washington's fumble where Jameis Winston like fumbled it into the air and Tony Washington returned it, you can see me running down the sideline parallel to Tony. And I would like to say that I kept up with Tony as he was running down the field. But you can famously see the dude with headphones, these exact headphones, actually.
No way.
Running.
These are your game day headphones we got?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have very many pairs of headphones. If they're good headphones, you're gonna wear them a lot.
Those headphones have been places.
Yeah, these were in the Rose Bowl. And then I would also honestly say last 2020 started on a real high note for Duck fans. January 1st of this year. I mean, that Rose Bowl against Wisconsin was a lot of fun. Just being on the sideline, I had a first row seat, clearly, like truly, to Justin Herbert's 3rd touchdown run, where he had that face of just like kind of shock, but also just joy mixed with a bit of agony, maybe. and it was just so much fun. I mean, that one was special. It was the first time that my mom had ever been to a Rose Bowl, and she was there for that. With my wife and with my sister, and it was a pretty magical moment.
That was a nice ending to it. That's nice and mushy. That was nice.
Okay. What is the biggest lesson about sports journalism you want the future of sports journalism to know?
Yeah, maybe one you haven't talked about, because you've talked about a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, shoot. I mean, yeah, we have talked about a lot of those. I think to encompass it, I come back to like, have fun, don't screw it up. I mean, like, and that's a very like, I say that sort of for fun and tongue in cheek every broadcast. But what I really mean by that every time I say it is like, hey, this is still fun, but also don't lose your standards. Like, there are a lot of people that want these jobs. Don't give your boss a reason to give your job to somebody else. Still do a good job while you're having fun doing it, because at the end of the day, if you're not having fun doing sports, like there's a reason that sports is at the end of every newscast. People stick around for the fun, right? So make sure that you remember that and still have fun.
I'm going to tell my producer that tomorrow.
Yeah, still have fun with it while doing a good job.
Because she likes to think that it's the least important thing, but it's like, no, you save the best for last, baby. That's what I said.
That would be the kicker then, though. Is the kicker really the best?
Nah, it's just a time filler.
Like, I love these.
It's the leftovers.
Okay, so in true news fashion, because everybody in news talks about not using cliches, but they always use cliches at any turn. What are you most thankful for this Thanksgiving week?
Oh, man. To be honest, you're the first person that's asked me that this year. Normally I get asked that question. Like that's something that comes up like, oh, what are you thankful for this year? This year, I'm just thankful to not have had anybody that I know personally. At least I know people who have dealt with the ramifications of this pandemic, but nobody that is, sort of in my immediate circle. And I feel very grateful for that. I think that's probably the most pressing thing that's on my mind. And then, while so many people are suffering economically and not just with all these health things, I think it's really important just to still have a roof over my head. And I don't take that for granted.
Nice. It's a good one, dude.
Love on family, love on people, period. I figured out this question in 2016. I would go around and I would ask football players this the week of Thanksgiving.
Oh.
You look at offense and defense. Which position represents each dish of the Thanksgiving meal?
So you're having what, like 11 different sides?
Well,
let's
you
go
think
7
about
on
it.
7.
Yeah, let's do that. But like, you have your turkey, your mashed potatoes, your stuffing, your cranberry sauce. There's always the pumpkin pie. Whether you're a family that has, like, there's so many options. Ooh,
Green
casserole.
bean casserole.
Yeah.
Well, I know. I mean, I've had Thanksgiving with Mike and Carrie, so I know that
Me
the
too.
cornbread casserole.
My first one in Abilene was with Carrie's
Yeah,
family.
buddy.
And Mike. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, so the cornbread casserole might have been stolen by the McMurray Thanksgiving.
If we
We'll
can
s-
spread
we'll
the
see.
joy, we spread the joy.
Well, I think that you can't have a football team without the quarterback, so that's probably got to be the turkey.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I think that the turkey is the quarterback. The stuffing is probably the offensive line, because they're the ones that have to, for lack of a better phrase, stuff the turkey and make sure that he can do his job. I'd probably say that the wide receivers are the pumpkin pie, because when you throw a great touchdown pass to the wide receiver, I mean, that's what the turkey's doing. They're throwing the touchdown pass to the dessert. So I would probably say the pumpkin pie is the wide receivers. I'm going to say that the running backs are actually like the turkey leg. So not like the white meat turkey, but like the turkey leg, if you will. Because I don't know about you guys, but in my family, who gets the turkey drumstick, like that's a big argument every year. Like you pretty much have to earn it. And that's pretty honestly like the biggest reason that I make the turkey every year now, because then I can be like, get the hell out of my kitchen. I'm eating
my turkey.
drumstick.
Your fourth
Jive
down,
turkey.
fourth and goal handoff. You go to your bell cow.
Yeah, that's right.
What would you make? I'm really interested. I love all your answers. What would you make the mash?
Well, the mashed potatoes are definitely going to be the tight ends, because
Okay.
mashed potatoes go right with the stuffing in terms of like you need the quarterback, the turkey needs those things to do his job. And so I'm going to go mashed potatoes are the tight ends. Now, I will say, though, I think that the gravy is going to be the kickers and punters, because you don't yeah, they're really important and people often forget about them. You know, when no one talks about the kickers and punters post game, that's usually a good thing. I would also then say that if you get over to the defense a little bit, I think that the defensive line is what I affectionately refer to as the turkey drippings, because, you know, if a quarterback's doing his job well, he's just going to like shed that defensive line pretty easily and they're just going to drip right off the turkey. So that's like the broth that you get at the bottom of the pan. That's probably your defensive line.
Man, this is impressive. You've gone through so many off the top of your head. I feel like you have this in front of you right now, and you knew this was coming, man. This is top notch.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. You know, it's like I have to fill airtime for an hour every day or something. But linebacker is probably, in my mind, going to be like the green bean casserole, because I feel like it hits hard. You know, like the green bean casserole, like you take a few bites and you're like, damn, I'm kind of full. Probably shouldn't have eaten that.
But it's so good. I'm going to keep going, and then food coma.
Yeah. And then I feel like I'm going to go with the cornerback. The cornerback is like the Hawaiian roll that you have, because the coverage.
Hawaiian roll, not just a roll, a Hawaiian roll.
Oh, no. Yeah. I mean, my family always buys those.
Those are staples in a lot of houses. Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason, though, is that you know, they're good at covering, right? Like the Hawaiian rolls can cover a lot of sins. And so like a cornerback, you know, they cover that wide receiver really well. The safeties, I think, is probably just going to be your alcoholic beverage, because at the end of the day, if you need a safety, if you have to have like, you know, something that just covers everything up, can make a tackle at the end of the night, or if it just needs to, or if it just needs to cover the turkey and just, you know, if the turkey's terrible, then the safety is going to make a big play. That's
the unexpected blitz.
Beverage. Did I miss any? Did I miss any positions?
I honestly,
I think you did. Wait, okay. The only one I can think of is kicker.
Well, I said specialists.
Yes.
Gravy.
Yes.
Oh, gravy. Okay. Respect.
Dude, I think you're the first person. You're the first person in the history of me asking that question to ever cover the entire team. So, dude, enjoy that Thanksgiving.
And then the head coach is obviously whoever cooked the turkey.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. You have gloriously.
Wait, can I get a recording of this so that I can make sure that I like remember everything that I said?
Going on YouTube. We're on YouTube.
Great.
Oh yeah.
Right now.
Okay. Moving on, staying with sort of a food flavor. In Eugene, Oregon, there is a constant debate over whose pizza is better,
No, there isn't.
Pegasus
Eugene
or
specific here.
Tracktown?
Sorry, go ahead. What is it again?
Pegasus or Tracktown Pizza? Who do you go with?
Not even a debate. It all depends on where you are in your evening. Because when I was in school and even after school, the best bar in the campus area of Eugene is no doubt Fathoms, which is underneath Pegasus Pizza. So if it's late at night and you just need a pizza, it's all about Pegasus.
Well, that's a good 1-2 punch. That's a good
Yes.
advantage for them to have
That's
that
right.
proximity.
That's right. And it's also just a great name for a bar. Fathoms. It's in the basement of a pizza place. Fathoms.
That's a good one for people to be like, "Where'd you go?" I was the Fathoms.
Something like that.
One. Yeah.
And then Tracktown has the best buffet for lunch. So you can go to Tracktown and you can get the buffet for lunch. So I don't think it's a debate. I think it's all about where you are in your day.
Not only is this episode educational for all the broadcasting stuff, but man, we're getting a good like Eugene tour guide information here. This is good stuff.
I hope
the bar is being raised with every single question. Okay. You and your wife and your wonderful wife, Lizzie, recently adopted a chocolate lab or black lab?
He is 3/4 black lab, quarter golden retriever.
Okay.
Oh.
What's his name?
Henry.
Henry. You adopted Henry not too long ago.
Wait, can I ask? Wait, real quick. Can I interject? Do you guys know the folktale of John Henry?
Is that
yes?
Is that why your dog's name is Henry?
Yes. He's a gentle giant.
Okay.
Oh, I like that.
He's like 90 pounds and he's not even a year old. Like he's massive. And so we were like, well, we need to name him something that's, like a gentle giant. Originally, we were going to go with Marshall from How I Met Your Mother.
Nice.
Like Jason Segel's character is kind of a gentle giant. Unfortunately, our cat's name is Marbles because she's nuts and lost her marbles and her fur looks like marbled bread. It was kind of a 2-for-1 there. Well,
it's too close to marbles.
Exactly.
Marbles.
Like we said Marshall and the cat looked at us and we were like, well, that's not going to work. So we decided gentle giants and I mentioned John Henry. And it's amazing to me the amount of people that actually don't know that folk story. And anyway, so I just had to ask.
Underrated.
Very underrated.
Yeah. Dude, that was a great lesson too. Okay, I digress back to the question. Who does Henry love the most? You or your wife, Lizzie?
Lizzie, no doubt.
Mama's boy.
Not even close.
No.
He will guard her like nobody's business.
That's awesome.
Which is what we wanted.
Big dog.
Yeah, that's what we wanted.
For sure.
Yep.
Guard dog.
Okay. Better football team in the Oregon Ducks flavor, the 2010 or 2014 team?
Neither. 2012.
Ooh.
I contend that the 2012 Oregon football team that absolutely blasted Kansas State in the Fiesta Bowl is the best football team that Oregon has ever fielded.
And for those that don't know or have forgotten, break down the roster a little bit.
So that was the year that DeAnthony Thomas famously did track finish at the goal line on the
straight out of Crenshaw High School. Yeah, I covered him in LA.
And he is the big reason why so many Los Angeles kids and Southern California kids are now on the Oregon football roster. Like they've told me as much. Like DeAnthony Thomas, him coming to Oregon was a transcendent moment in Oregon football history for a lot of different reasons.
Well, plus, Oregon beat out the USC's. Really, USC was the really good team. And
USC wanted him to play cornerback. Famously, the Ducks were like, "You can play running back for us," and he was like, "Great,
play whatever you want." D'Anthony.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? So, I will contend that the 2012 team, even though between the 10 and 14 teams, those two teams played in the national championship game and the first ever college football playoff in Marcus Mariota's year, like I still think the 2012 team is the best team that Oregon's ever fielded. That was Marcus Mariota's freshman year. That was a great offensive line that had a few guys in the NFL. The defense had guys that went all over the NFL in the secondary and the linebacker core. Like, I think that team was special. The only game that they lost that year they were beating teams by an average of 3 touchdowns a game. Only game they lost was against Stanford, where the offense had a terrible game. There was one really big missed field goal. And unfortunately, there was a missed block by a guy who we may or may not have mentioned already on this podcast. So that was, I still think, the best team that Oregon's ever fielded. And anybody that wants to argue that with me, feel free. I think that's the best team that Oregon's ever had. Because I will also say that
What's your Twitter again, Joey? So we can have people argue with you.
At Joey McUO. Please bring it on.
UO.
I love it.
Underscore UO?
Nope, just UO.
Okay, we're tagging that. Don't worry about it.
So, but like seriously, every team that gets to the national championship needs a little bit of luck. Like when Cal in 2010 couldn't make a field goal, big reason why Oregon went to the national championship game in 2010. 2014, that team dodged a couple different bullets, mainly losing to Arizona and it being the first year of the college football playoff. Like Oregon had a chance to avenge that loss. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I know Arizona or whatever. Scooby Wright was, pretty good.
Surprised you're not rubbing that in more, Mike. You're being pretty cool.
So they lost like 3 games down the stretch, so I'm not going to rub it in too much.
Yeah, but that team. I mean, in the Pac-12 championship game, we learned who the better team was.
Most entertaining Oregon athlete you've ever covered. Most entertaining.
Boy,
I don't make it easy.
There's been a lot. Because entertaining, like with what they did on the field or the court, is one thing. Entertaining
interview
off, like interview, like
I think you're going more
camera.
towards interview, right, Mike?
Maybe it's a combo. I sort of leave it up to Joe to answer.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Troy Dye. Troy was, he led the team in tackles for 4 straight years. Like that just doesn't happen. Like you don't have that many tackles as a freshman, sophomore, junior as he did. But then he also, just the way he danced to shout at the start of the 4th quarter. He fired up the entire team. Got a reprimand from the Pac-12 for doing it. He talked about that on the coach's show when I interviewed him. Troy was just fun. Like he was entertaining with his W down. Like that was so good when he did that with Holly Rowe post game after Oregon beat Washington his senior year. I think Troy is probably the first that comes to mind. The second might be Dylan Brooks, because Dylan was just great to talk about on the court, but he did some stuff off the court that was just hilarious. Like one time during a timeout, the Duck does like, the noise machine with the trash can. Like we've all seen it.
I remember this. I remember this moment.
Dylan Brooks famously at one point went over and just like, he didn't even let the Duck do like the buildup. He just ripped the lid off and then walked away during a timeout. Like, stuff like that. Like those are the cool things.
Final question, wrapping it up. Favorite movie you are ashamed to admit?
Guilty pleasure.
Let's see. I'm gonna go Mamma Mia. Big.
That's good.
Big musical guy.
That is good.
Yeah, I love a good musical. And who doesn't like ABBA? Like if you in our generation, if you didn't grow up with at least one parent that listened to ABBA, like that's probably an anomaly. So watching that movie, I was like, oh, I know all these songs. Why do I know all these songs? And I was like, oh, my mom listened to all of these songs. So
that was a good one. I'm with you. I like that one too.
Kind of reminded me of my mom.
I think he went up to Keating. Keating last week was Footloose. I thought that was pretty good. It's a good movie, but like it qualifies as a guilty pleasure. Mamma Mia is a bona fide guilty pleasure for a dude.
But like at the same time, what qualifies as a guilty pleasure movie? Like if you ask some people, they're going to be like, oh, I love Star Wars and that's a guilty pleasure movie. But now it's like, no, that's like okay to like Star Wars. It's so funny.
I think if you could just even think of an answer when you've been asked the question, then you deep down, why it's a guilty pleasure.
That's like because
you wouldn't have gone out of your way to tell anyone.
There's a playlist on Spotify right now that's like songs you sing in the shower. Oh, cool. And it's like literally full of guilty pleasure songs. Like NSYNC's Bye 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 played on that playlist when we were listening to it earlier. And I was like, wow, I still know this song. It happens.
I think any guy, that admits they like bye bye bye, it qualifies as a guilty pleasure because they're so popular with the ladies. Not that many guys can come around to admit it, but they were awesome.
That's true. That's true. Joey, you have completed the lightning round.
I feel like that wasn't very lightning-esque. That was more like molasses. I'm sorry.
Dude, it
More the merrier, man.
It's a few of us just answering questions, shooting the stuff. That's all this is supposed to be. Thank you for playing. Oh man, it's been such a blast. It's been going on, and it's been over an hour and a half of us hanging out, like getting all this whole thing going. I hope you've had as much fun as we have.
Oh, it's always fun. I mean, I appreciate it, guys. It's fun to be able to talk about kind of the behind the scenes, because I spend so much time talking about what's going on the field and the court, and I think sometimes it's cool to kind of peel the curtain back. So I think it's a great idea. I hope that you guys have a lot of success doing this, because it's fun to be able to hear some of the different stories of what goes on to be able to put the show on, right? Sometimes those are the best stories. There's a reason that a lot of different shows, like I loved Sports Night. I don't know if you guys ever watched Sports Night. One of
Throwback. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of a few Aaron Sorkin shows that I am a big fan of. The Newsroom, West Wing. Like, I mean, there's a lot of those kind of the behind the scenes shows that are obviously pretty enjoyable for people that like that kind of stuff like we do.
Well, I've had a lot of fun getting to chat with you, Joey. We hadn't even met before getting to do this, and Mike's told me about you for years. And it was just great to shoot the breeze. And I really hope we get to do it again down the line. And like I said, I got a buddy in Portland, and whenever I go visit him, he is demanding we go to Eugene. So I'm gonna have to hit you up. You're gonna have to show us a good brewery or two, and just go get a slice or something. That'd be a lot of fun.
Brewery 2, 10, 20,
however many there are.
Distillery. Yeah, I'm in.
Love it.
Joey, we appreciate it, dude. Thanks so much for coming on. We're gonna hit you up, down the road. And gentlemen, I know we've been sort of nursing our drinks through the evening, but I propose cheers.
Yeah, do you have one, Joey? We should have. Okay, he's got something. Yeah, so we end.
Yeah.
That is now we're ending with the cheers. Cheers, buddies. Sports Amigos.
Purposely,
episode 3 of Sports Amigos.
I purposely picked out the Oregon Hop Valley beer for you.
Oregon.
In
the house.
Love it.